In this video, I'm going to be taking on the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. You should greet this announcement with a strong assumption that I am wrong and the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy is correct. However, what matters in philosophy is the quality of the arguments. So, here are my arguments. The encyclopedia entry that I'm specifically interested in is Reasons for Action, Internal versus External by Stephen Finley and Mark Schroeder. And more specifically, what they call in that article the central problem of morality. I'm going to start off with something that I think is true. I'll then show how the Stanford Encyclopedia article says something slightly different. Their different version leads to what the authors call the central problem of morality. Then, I hope to show how my version is better than their version because it avoids this problem. It solves the central problem of morality. I know that this is a tall order. However, the proof, or its failure, is in the doing. So as I said, I'm starting with something that I believe is true. It has to do with what it takes to have a reason to do something. Does Sally have a reason to look for a new job? Does Omar have a reason to be angry with Frederick? Do you have a reason to continue watching this video? What does it take to have a reason to do something or to not do something? The position that I accept is that to have a reason to do something, then you must have a desire that would be served by doing it. I have a reason to avoid putting my hand on a hot stove. Why? Because I have this strong aversion to my own pain. And if I put my hand on a hot stove, I'll be in pain. My reason to avoid pain is my reason to avoid putting my hand on a hot stove. For you to have a reason to continue watching this video, you must have desires that would be served by doing so. Now, I suspect that you have a lot of desires that would be served by a better understanding of what it takes to have reasons to do something or not do something. So I suspect that you have reasons to continue watching this video, whether you realize it or not. Of course, I could be mistaken. Perhaps this video contains misinformation, and you'd be better off spending your time elsewhere. According to this account, what it would take for you to be better off, for you to have more reason to be spending your time elsewhere, is for spending your time elsewhere to better serve your desires. For a long time, I've taken this to be what philosophers have called the Humean theory of reasons, inspired by the writings of David Hume. However, when I turn to the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, and to this article in particular, it says something slightly different. It presents the Humean theory of reasons as follows. If there is a reason for someone to do something, then she must have some desire that would be served by her doing it. I want to compare this to the version that I stated. To help you out, here they are, side by side, or top to bottom. I want you to note a slight difference in the wording. The Stanford Encyclopedia version uses the phrase, there is a reason. In my version, I use the phrase, have a reason. Now this invites the question of whether these two expressions are saying the same thing. I hold that the Stanford Encyclopedia version has an important ambiguity. It has two potential meanings, and getting them mixed up creates a whole lot of confusion. This confusion leads to what the authors call the central problem of morality. This confusion and the central problem of morality are things I want to avoid. So to explain the difference, let me start with this. If I say that I have a stack of $20 bills sitting on the table, that doesn't mean the same thing as saying that there is a stack of $20 bills sitting on the table. And similarly, to say that I have a reason not to lie doesn't mean the same thing as there is a reason for me not to lie. Now, of course, if it's true that I have a stack of $20 bills sitting on the table, then it's also true that there is a stack of $20 bills sitting on the table. But if it's true that there's a stack of $20 bills sitting on the table, this doesn't imply that the money belongs to me, that it's my stack of $20 bills. Similarly, saying that I have a reason not to lie implies that there is a reason for me not to lie. But the truth of the claim that there is a reason for me not to lie does not imply that I have a reason not to lie. The reasons for me not to lie may not be mine. Well, let's imagine a case in which an agent named Jim has a reason to prevent me from doing something. Maybe Jim wants a particular job. He thinks that he might not get the job if I apply for it. Consequently, Jim has a reason to stop me from applying for the job. Jim might even perform certain actions to prevent me from applying for the job. He might try removing the job posting from the bulletin board, or speak about how unpleasant the job would be and how he feels sorry for anybody who gets picked for that position, while at the same time applying for that position. Now, if Jim has a reason to prevent me from applying for the job, then there is a reason to prevent me from applying for the job. This is true in the same way that if Jim has an apple, then there is an apple. That is to say, at least one apple exists. If Jim has a T-Rex living on his farm in Montana, then there is a T-Rex living on a farm in Montana. However, the fact that the proposition, there is a reason to prevent me from applying for the job, is true, this doesn't imply that I have a reason to prevent me from applying for the job, or even that I have a reason to not apply for the job. Again, there is an apple does not imply I have an apple. The apple might belong to somebody else, like Jim. Similarly, there is a reason does not imply that I have a reason. However, somebody might try to defend the SEP as follows. The SEP article uses the phrase, there is a reason for me. So one may want to argue that something doesn't count as a reason for me unless it is a reason that I have. Something doesn't count as a reason for me to go to the store unless it is a reason that I have for going to the store. This interpretation seems plausible when applied to the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy presentation of the human theory of reasons. We can say that a reason doesn't count as a reason for me unless it is a reason that I have. And this would mean that something does not count as a reason for me unless it serves at least one of my desires. But does it always mean that? Thinking that the phrase, there is a reason for me, always implies I have a reason is what leads to the central problem of morality. Denying that the phrase, there is a reason for me, always implies I have a reason, and doesn't have this implication when used in a moral context, avoids the central problem of morality. Let me explain. The authors of the article explain the central problem of morality in this long quote. If an action, like ordering genocide, is morally wrong for an agent, like Hitler, only if there is a reason for him not to do it, and if there is a reason for him not to do it only if he has some desire that would be served by his not doing it, then it follows that whether an action is morally wrong for an agent depends on what he or she desires. But that seems incompatible with moral absolutism. What the authors call moral absolutism is the thesis that the wrongness of an action is independent of an agent's desires. We can see that if wrongness depends on having a reason, and if having a reason depends on having a desire, then wrongness must depend on having a desire, which is in conflict with the thesis that wrongness is independent of having a desire. And so the authors argue it seems that at least one of these three claims must be false. The claim that it is morally wrong for somebody to do something only if there is a reason for them not to do it, or the claim that there is a reason for an agent not to do something only if the agent has a desire that would be served by not doing it, or it might be the claim that whether it is wrong for somebody to do something is independent of their desires. Deciding which of these claims is false and needs to be thrown out is exactly what the authors call the central problem of morality, with different philosophers making different proposals regarding which one to throw out. But this central problem of morality only arises if we assume that the two uses of the phrase there is a reason has exactly the same meaning. That assumption is false. In a moral context, the phrase that there is a reason for him not to do it doesn't imply that he has a reason not to do it. It implies that people generally, you, me, others in our communities, have reasons to give each other, including him, a reason not to do it. And it doesn't make sense to say that we have reasons to give each other a reason not to do something if we all already have a reason not to do it. It only makes sense if it's possible that some of us lack a sufficiently strong reason not to do something, and we all need to give everybody that reason. Let's apply this to some real-world moral issues. Lying is morally wrong for an agent to do if people generally have reasons to give everybody a reason not to lie. Drunk driving, theft, vandalism, rape, slavery, murder, genocide. For these to be wrong is for people generally to have reasons to condemn, perhaps to punish those who do such things, in short, to give them reasons not to do it. So I want to take this idea and plug it into the central problem of morality. It says that if there is a moral reason for me not to do something, then people generally have reasons to give everybody, including me, a reason not to perform actions of that type. To say that there is a moral reason not to rape or murder is to say that people generally have reasons to condemn and perhaps to punish those who rape or murder. In place of the Humean theory of reasons, we put the following. If you have a reason not to do something, then you must have a desire that would be served by not doing it. These two propositions are fully compatible with what the SEP called moral absolutism. The wrongness of rape and murder does not depend on a person having a reason not to rape or murder. It depends on us, the community, having reasons to give everybody in the community a reason not to do such things. And if somebody doesn't have a reason not to rape or murder, it is all the more important to give them one. And how do we give somebody a reason not to lie, break promises, vandalize, drive while drunk, rob, rape, enslave, murder, or participate in genocide? We make it the case that their desires would not be served by doing such things, by external sanctions, such as punishments, and internal sanctions, brought about through our social expressions of disapproval. So the problem in the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy is that it treats there is a moral reason not to do something as equivalent to has a reason not to do something. But these aren't the same thing. They are no more the same thing than there is $1 billion in the bank is the same thing as I have $1 billion in the bank. When we clear up this confusion, the central problem of morality, as described in the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, vanishes. And I propose that this result provides an excellent reason to accept this account. I hope that you discovered that you really did have a reason to finish this video. I suppose the most important conclusion to be drawn from this is that immoral acts are acts that we have reasons to give everybody a reason not to perform. But we're not doing that when we reward those who perform immoral acts with economic and political power. There is more to be said about what it takes for something to be wrong. I've covered some of that in other videos, and I invite you to take a look.